on this episode of Mythbusters.
Is the first generation Hemi really World War II fighter technology? So I was going to do a video today. I'm going to take the generator off here. I'm going to get in a position to get the valve covers off of here. I did a little bit of rewiring today. This was the wire that went from the generator to the voltage regulator. I'll pull in a little close so you can see it. So yeah, the old wiring was very frayed. Both connections pretty bad there, and then on the voltage regulator end, kind of crappy too. So this wire, I don't know if it had been spliced or reconnected at some point. I could take this tape off and take a look, but it's possible that it was at one point. So I'm going, I already have, I've replaced that wire, and I've replaced the other wire to the voltage regulator that goes to the starter relay. So those are done, but I want to get the generator off, power steering pump off. As I mentioned to you before, it's kind of neat that the power steering unit, it runs off the same pulley as the generator. There's a shaft that runs straight through. So as the generator spins, it also powers the power steering pump. So I've got a high pressure and a low pressure line on here. I'm going to take that off. And we'll pull the generator off. 7/8. Let's try that. Oh, look at that. Let's try. You know, every nut and bolt I've had to loosen on this car, you know, it was assembled 70 years ago. Every single one has been super easy to get off. So, knock on wood, that's going to continue. So that power steering line came off pretty easy. Okay, so Gearhead Lounge on YouTube, pretty decent channel. He did a Generation 1, Generation 2, Generation 3 history of the Hemis. And, you know, overall it's pretty informative, but I just wanted to comment on that video a little bit here. So about 20% of that 30-minute video that he did on the Gen 1 Hemis related to Chrysler's World War II aircraft engine. And pretty much the implication from him is that the inspiration for this engine came from the airplane engine. And then further on in the video, he talks about the Arkus-Duntov motor. Oh shit! I just lost an O-ring. Duntov motor. Oh damn it! I didn't even see it on there. Okay. I don't know if I'll ever see that again. I've had a problem with dropping stuff today. The end of the field connection here, battery connection on the voltage regulator, there's a really tiny slotted screw that holds the wire on, and when I replaced that, I dropped the screw about 6 times, and I eventually just went to the store and bought more. So I kept dropping it, and then it kind of went down into the Netherlands down here. And what happens in the Netherlands stays in the Netherlands, apparently. So, okay, so Gearhead Lounge. We spent 20% of the video discussing Chrysler's V16 aircraft engine. It was experimental. It was pretty close to going into production. It was, a project for a fighter aircraft that eventually, essentially it was stillborn. It was ready right at the end of World War II. It flew a couple times. It had good horsepower. It was a big engine. Flew a couple times, but I don't know if it had really competitive numbers yet compared to what you would see on a Merlin. The Merlin engine was pretty well advanced at that point. But it was an American design and American innovation. That was cool. And it had a hemispherical combustion chamber, which is what this video kind of focused on. And then later in the video, he talks about the Arkus-Duntov engine, the R-Dun, the cylinder head that he did for the Ford Flatheads, which if you look at a Chrysler dual rocker and the R-Dun head, they were virtually the same design.
Being a Duntov cylinder head design was developed a few years before Chrysler came out with their street version, many mistakenly believed Chrysler got their Hemi idea from Duntov. But as you can see, Chrysler's been working at this for a while, so no, it wasn't Duntov.
So he says, yeah, Zora Duntov, he had that engine. But as we saw, Chrysler got their inspiration from their aircraft engine. And sorry, but that's just kind of ridiculous. The aircraft engine was an all aluminum overhead cam, inverted, 60-degree V, 16 cylinder, of course. The technologies and processes involved in that engine really don't cross over to automotive use whatsoever. Hemispherical combustion chambers were not a new idea. Radial engines all had them in the war, so the benefits of the Hemi cylinder head were well known already. It wasn't some sort of magic. The aircraft engine really had nothing to do with the automotive program. The trick, the big innovation, wasn't hemispherical combustion chambers. It was to be able to create a reliable engine that would do 100,000 miles. I can't find the right wrench now for this. There we go. Find a reliable engine that would do 100,000 miles with fuel economy in mind. People, World War II, they were definitely economy conscious because fuel was rationed. And even during the Korean War, there was some rationing going on. Economy was important. So it needed longevity and it needed economy. The real trick was to, like Ford in 1932 when he created the mass production V8 engine, 32 Ford. The trick, Ford didn't invent the V8 engine, but he found a way to, through the casting of the monoblock, he found a way to, produce it affordably. And that was the trick for the hemispherical combustion chamber on the automobile like we have here. And even the affordability was an issue going right up to 1958, and then the engine was phased out because, once we get under the valve covers, I'll show you, it's complex. The valve train geometry, it's got really long exhaust rockers to operate the exhaust valves way over on the downside of the cylinder head. So dual rocker shafts, whereas, you know, later V8s and other V8s, they had a single rocker shaft and the wedge engine cylinder head design. It was much cheaper to produce. All these heads were, you know, finely machined, whereas, you know, the small block Chevy, part of the genius of it was, you know, it was able to be cast and didn't have to do a whole lot of machining work to trim that out. So yeah, so the aircraft engine had nothing to do with this engine, other than Chrysler made the aircraft engine and Chrysler also made this engine, and they have hemispherical combustion chambers. But to suggest that one has anything to do with the other is a fallacy, really. A lot of half-inch nuts on this car so far. Valve cover nuts are half-inch. The water pump, the fan pulleys, that was a half-inch. The Arkus-Duntov engine, Chrysler engineers were actually in his shop in 1947. Chrysler engineers of the day, you know, when this engine came out, it was certainly state of the art, and you know, in the American automotive market, it was, you know, it was the pinnacle of V8 technology at the time. But engineers, Chrysler engineers in 1951 had said that, you know, it was other engines, mostly European. There was BMW 328, the Healy. There was a racing engine called the Delage. In 1927, it won Le Mans, I think. You know, all those had hemispherical combustion chambers. The trick, Chrysler's trick, was to find a way to mass produce it. You know, if you're going to make 100,000 of them and not break the bank doing it, it's, you know, one thing to hand build an engine for a car that you make 20 of a year. Something quite different to compete with Cadillac and Oldsmobile. And all right, what do we got left to do here? I think that's it. Oh, geez. One generator and power steering pump assembly. This thing weighs 60 pounds. I swear to God, it is not light. Wow. Nothing's light on this car. I've heard the intake manifold is 70 pounds. But yeah, this is a beast. That is a beast for sure. So I guess in summary, you know, if something's repeated often enough, and if you keep saying it louder, you know, people will totally believe you in that whole aircraft engine thing. You go to the Wikipedia page, it mentions it, but it's really, you know, because you Google Chrysler Hemi, and of course that was a Hemi engine. It was Chrysler's first, but the inference that this is somehow World War II fighter plane technology, man, this is the best thing ever, because that's just not accurate. It's not a derivative of a fighter plane. The cylinder head shares the same basic shape, but it's, you know, it's activated by push rods instead of an overhead camshaft. It's a 90-degree V. It's cast iron. It's not aluminum. It's not a 60-degree V. You know, the technology that's in this engine, other than the fact the cylinder head's a hemisphere, is no greater than anything else anybody else was doing. And the only reason, you know, it's a Hemi V8 is that they figured out a way to do it for reliable power and relatively affordable. You know, 1955, they came up with the Spitfire engines, which were the semi-Hemi or the polysphere engines. Used the same block, but they had a much simplified head design. You know, you lost the the hemispherical combustion chamber, but it was a lot cheaper to produce. So you saw those Polys show up in the cheaper Chryslers and the Windsors and in the Plymouths. Plymouth's first V8 was a Polysphere engine. It was based off of, you know, the Hemi block, but it, you know, different cylinder heads. It was just a lot cheaper to produce. So this design is not from an aircraft. It's pure automotive engineering and good engineering, but it's not from World War II aircraft. Okay, that's it about the Gearhead Lounge. Good channel though, guys. Check them out. It's good stuff. It's just, you know, probably not a guy that's taken apart one of these engines before. So, well, I'm not either. I'm just getting started. But you know what I'm saying. He's a guy that read some books and read some stuff on the internet and created a YouTube video without actually, you know, digging into the depth of the research. Okay.